All right, team, coming at you from the Indianapolis International Airport. Hope things are going well. Currently blizzarded in here. But let's talk about business cycles, right? So business cycles is the fluctuations in the macroeconomy, okay? So changes in GDP, inflation rate, and unemployment rate that give us some idea of the booms and busts in the macroeconomy. Okay, so we're going to talk about those now, right? The booms and the busts, which we've been referring to a little bit through GDP and inflation and unemployment, but now let's talk about it as its own thing. All right, so first we're going to draw a stylized version, so like a simplified version of the GDP graph that we saw when we first talked about GDP, right? The exponential increase curve with the little ups and downs of actual GDP that doesn't perfectly follow the exponential growth trend line. Okay, but here's the stylized graph. I'm going to tell you how to draw it, so draw it exactly as I explain. Okay. So here it is. So labels first. So you're going to label this section business cycles, and then draw this graph maybe going down 5 lines or 6 lines on your page. And your y-axis is real GDP, our GDP. So this is our GDP adjusted for inflation, right? It's real. And then our x-axis is time. So like our GDP graph had years on the bottom, right? It went from 1900 to 2016 or whatever, right? Okay. So then once you have your labels, next thing you're going to do is this 3% trend growth line. Oops, there we go. Okay. So this big line, oh gosh, making a mess here. But the pencil line, see how the pencil line is like up? Okay. So just draw that pencil line as an increasing line, but with a slightly increasing slope, because that's an exponential 3% growth of the macroeconomy. Okay. So then once you have that, what you're going to do is you're going to draw a curvy line that's going up and then down and then up and then down, centered around the trend line that you drew. Okay, so your line goes up, down, up, down. Okay, it's like a cycle, like a wave. Okay, so you're going to draw this wave graph. Okay, so you have this wave graph, and then we're going to label these different areas. So where your first peak, you call it in your wave diagrams, right? So you go up to your first peak. That's number 1 on your graph, so label that number 1. Okay, and then number 3 is your first trough. Okay, so at your first trough, right, see it's at the bottom of the dip, put a number 3, okay? And then in between 1 and 3, put a bracket, and that's gonna be part 2, the second phase of the business cycle. Okay, and then going from 3 up to the next peak. So, yeah, this maybe isn't exactly the peak. Maybe it should have been further. It doesn't matter. Okay, but somewhere near your second peak, put a little dash line, okay, or a little dash. And then part 4 is between 3 and that second peak. Okay, so from your trough to your peak is part 4. Okay, cool.